The universe is littered with legends, and among the strangest are those who embody extremes that no mortal imagination dares to shape. In the endless canvas of creation, two names stand out not merely for the violence they wreak, but for the fundamental ideas they represent. Doomsday, the evolutionary apocalypse, a living embodiment of nature's cruelty taken to its most absolute form, and Lobo, the last Czarnian, a creature who is not just unkillable, but cursed to live on forever in mockery of gods and demons alike. Their meeting was never supposed to happen, but the cosmos thrives on impossible convergences. Doomsday's existence is a tragedy of inevitability, born through cycles of death and resurrection. Engineered to survive the most hostile conditions, he is not alive in any conventional sense. He is adaptation personified. To face him is to face extinction, for whatever kills him cannot kill him again. He is the shadow that falls on civilizations, the predator of even the strongest predators. Entire pantheons and planetary defenders have learned that the beast cannot be reasoned with, cannot be appealed to, cannot be contained forever. Each death is merely another iteration in the perfection of his design. Doomsday is proof that nature's harshest law, the law of survival, is ultimately unbeatable. Lobo, on the other hand, is a paradox that the universe never should have allowed. The last survivor of Czarnia, not by luck but by his own deliberate hand, he exists in defiance of cosmic order. His immortality is not born of adaptation or evolution, but of rejection. Heaven does not want him. Hell refuses him. Every metaphysical afterlife has issued a ban. He has outdrunk gods, outfought Superman, and outlived planets. Unlike Doomsday, who survives by necessity, Lobo survives because he is cosmically unerasable. His blood alone can spawn new Lobos. His body reconstitutes itself instantly, and his soul has no destination beyond the living realm. Death, which Doomsday turns into a ladder for evolution, is something Lobo cannot climb because he will never step onto it. The question of their clash is more than a spectacle of strength. It is a philosophical argument made flesh. Is survival about perpetual adaptation, about becoming more unkillable with every fall like Doomsday? Or is true victory found in being beyond death altogether, as Lobo? Doomsday embodies the law of escalation. There is no final defeat, only evolution beyond what last killed him. But Lobo embodies the corruption of that law, for he does not adapt to overcome death. He simply is never allowed to face it. The very idea of death has no power over him. He is not improved by survival. He simply remains. The stage for their confrontation was set in the aftermath of a collapsed galaxy war. Across the husk of an abandoned system, Doomsday had wandered in his eternal search for battle, his senses sharpening at the faintest notion of resistance. He had slaughtered armies of alien machines, crushed titans made of molten rock, and even forced celestial entities to abandon whole sectors to avoid his wrath. Yet he was restless, a predator without prey worthy of his hunger. Lobo, meanwhile, had been riding through the void on his battered space hog, humming obscene tunes while dragging behind him the chained carcass of a fallen war god he had been contracted to bring in. The irony of it was that neither one sought the other intentionally. The clash was almost inevitable, written in the absurdity of a cosmos too big to contain two extremes of indestructibility without them eventually colliding. Philosophically, both creatures are mirror images of cosmic mockery. Doomsday is what happens when mortality itself becomes a weapon. Death feeds his strength. He evolves, he adapts, he rises above whatever felled him before. Lobo is the inversion of this principle. He cannot evolve through death, because death will not take him. He does not grow stronger from loss. He simply does not lose in the ultimate sense. He can be broken, beaten, and burned, but he cannot cross that final boundary. Unlike Doomsday, he is denied the engine of progression, but that denial is itself his greatest weapon. For it means that unlike Doomsday, he is not chained to the cycle of death and return. He exists permanently, immune not just to wounds but to the concept of finality. Thus, when their paths finally converged, The galaxy trembled not at the thought of a battle of fists, but at the revelation of a deeper truth. Could the universe favor the beast who adapts through destruction, or the madman who cannot be destroyed at all? Could escalation defeat permanence? In the dark abyss of that forgotten system, the debate was no longer spoken in philosophy but to be etched in battle, every blow carrying the weight of existential meaning. Doomsday roared with the hunger of extinction. Lobo grinned with the madness of immortality, and both prepared to settle a question as old as creation itself. What truly endures when the universe demands survival? The first collision shook the empty system like a supernova. Doomsday lunged forward with feral speed, his massive body tearing through asteroids as though they were mist, his fist connected with Lobo's chest in a bone-shattering strike that would have crushed a Kryptonian's ribcage into splinters. Lobo flew backward, crashing through a drifting planetoid, the surface exploding in fire and debris. But before the dust settled, the Czarnian outlaw was laughing, his voice echoing in the void. He revved his space hog and shot forward, chain hook in hand, wrapping it around Doomsday's arm and yanking him into a vicious headbutt. The crack of bone reverberated, though both skulls remained intact. Doomsday responded with an earth-shaking roar, smashing Lobo into the planetoid's core, molten rock erupting around them. But Lobo only grinned wider, spitting out a tooth that immediately grew back. "That all you got, Spikes? I've had bar brawls nastier than this." He tore free, swung his hook, and pulled Doomsday into an uppercut that launched the beast into orbit. The battle stretched across the system, planet after planet reduced to rubble under the sheer force of their strikes. Doomsday adapted quickly, his body sprouting new protrusions to counter Lobo's hooks, his reflexes adjusting to the outlaw's unpredictable ferocity. He overpowered Lobo in sheer momentum, pummeling him relentlessly, smashing him into fragments of planetary crust, ripping his arms off more than once. Yet every time, Lobo regenerated instantly, laughing at the futility of it all. Doomsday's strength escalated, his blows growing harder, his skin becoming tougher, but the Czarnian simply could not be killed. Every drop of Lobo's spilled blood threatened to spawn another version of him, and though some of those duplicates dissipated quickly, the chaos they caused only made the battle more unpredictable. For days they fought. Doomsday roared with escalating power, pressing the battle into black holes and through dying suns, but Lobo only cursed louder, fought dirtier, and returned faster. Doomsday could not end him. His strength grew in response to resistance, but no matter how much he escalated, Lobo's immortality rendered the point meaningless. Each kill was no kill, each victory was undone instant. Where Doomsday needed the finality of death to fuel his evolution, Lobo's existence denied it to him utterly. In one of the final exchanges, Doomsday drove Lobo into the core of a neutron star, the heat and gravity crushing everything mortal into atomic vapor. Yet when the star exploded, it was Doomsday who was hurled into the void, charred but reforming, while Lobo staggered out of the blaze, flesh knitting itself back together, cursing at the inconvenience. "Took you long enough, Fragface," he spat, grabbing his space hog from orbit and smashing it over Doomsday's head. The truth became evident in the endlessness of their war. Doomsday could dominate, he could escalate, he could even kill Lobo 1,000 times. But none of it mattered. The Czarnian was outside the cycle of life and death that Doomsday needed to climb higher. Lobo was not an obstacle to be overcome. He was a wall that could never be removed. Where Doomsday's philosophy relied on evolution through endings, Lobo mocked the very concept of an ending, and in that mockery lay his victory. Eventually, Doomsday ceased roaring. He stood, still adapting, still strengthening, but with no progress to be made. Lobo, battered but grinning, lit a cigar off the heat of a dying star and stared at the beast. "See, that's the difference, Spikes. You get stronger every time you croak. But me, I don't croak, I just keep on going. You'll keep fighting forever, and I'll keep laughing forever. That's why I win, chump. You can't finish what won't end." And in that silence, the universe itself conceded. Doomsday was escalation, but escalation requires an opponent who can die. Lobo was permanence, and permanence cannot be beaten. Lobo roared in laughter, his voice echoing across the shattered system as he rode off into the void. The beast remained behind, restless, unsatisfied, still dangerous, but denied the one thing he needed most, the kill. And thus, by the cruelest twist of fate and philosophy, the unkillable Czarnian was the only victor that mattered.